Good evening and welcome to the Tony Kinnett cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated, first on 93 WIBC. Let's get right into the news. The Department of Justice has dispatched a prosecutor, a special prosecutor, that is, to Los Angeles. And the reason, of course, for dispatching a prosecutor to LA is because of the bizarrely long election ballot counting cycle that is taking place in California. Now, this comes in a very, very contentious series of updates. Of course, since the Tuesday primary, Spencer Pratt has maintained a remarkably sizable second place lead versus the socialist in third place. Karen Bass, the incumbent mayor, is still in first. But that brings us to the concerns of voter fraud. Now, before we get to that, the Nate Silver bulletin letter, he used to be the guy who ran the 538, he's pointing it out that the California mail ballot return deadline is just blisteringly beyond what any other state in the country, any other polity, meaning like a group that has individuals of representation. So a township, a city council, no one has mail-in ballot deadline returns as far away from the election itself as California. California is wildly slow. There's not a civilized place on planet Earth. There's not an uncivilized place on planet Earth that votes this slow. Now that brings us to the most contentious of the contention. So there were some allegations over the last couple of days that in the dead of night, that there was a Spencer Pratt free Los Angeles ballot drop. And this caused everyone to go at each other's throats in a couple of ways, means, and reasons here. So first of all, Rasmussen reports, so we use Rasmussen data, we use a lot of other data as well. They have contended that there have been a couple, at least one for sure, ballot drop in which Bass gained 12,800 votes, that Rahman gained 9,500, that Miller and others gained about 1,200, and then Pratt gained 0 votes. Here's the issue. This isn't pulling directly from the ballot data. It's pulling from an NBC News electoral counter. Now, should NBC News absolutely be checking all of the ballot drop information? 100%. The issue is that this doesn't quite appear to be an actual case of ballots getting tossed away and aside. So this actual ballot data that's up on the website, you can see it right now. You can actually see the batch composition here. You can see that Spencer Pratt is gaining, or at least is receiving, a small chunk in some cases, a larger chunk in others, of the votes in every single ballot drop. Now, is that any excuse whatsoever for California taking an eon and an eternity to actually get these ballots in?
Nope.
Is this suggesting that there isn't any shady shenanigans going on?
Nope.
Absolutely not. But is the example that's been flying all around social media today a crystal clear, perfect, we got them example of them getting rid of getting other ballots in and none in for Spencer Pratt? I don't believe so. I've tried to sort through some of these things throughout the day. I'm not seeing it just between you, me, and Dupree. Now, this does bring us to the special prosecutor that has been sent to Los Angeles. Because again, if you are taking such a long time to get over to California, you're taking such a long time to get these ballots in, then maybe there could be a couple of concerns. And so the Department of Justice just dispatched an individual just to observe the counting in action. That's it. He has no special powers other than to report back to the Department of Justice what he sees. Now, this has upset greatly a lot of individuals. So CNN's report on this says the Justice Department has sent a prosecutor to observe LA's ballot counting amid President Trump's baseless claims of Democratic cheating, quote. Now, what did the president actually say regarding, this kind of stuff? Quote, there's big cheating by the Democrats in California. Votes are all tied up, may not be in for weeks. Under investigation by the U.S. Attorney's Office in Los Angeles. Why the vote counting delay? 3 question marks. President Donald John Trump. So that was on June the 3rd, a couple of days ago. And by the way, the president right there saying, look, if we're taking this long to count out votes, there's some shady shenanigans afoot. I'm not seeing anything wrong there. But suggesting it's just baseless to have some concerns about this, well, I don't think so. Now, the California Post and the New York Post, same publication essentially, again citing the story that a Los Angeles prosecutor sent out to observe the election, Rob Bonta, the Attorney General for the state of California, the great halcyon office of sober individuals like Kamala Harris, he sent out, "My office has a presence on the ground right now, and they are monitoring the situation closely and stands ready to protect voters and ensure California's election laws are followed." Okay, here's where we just fall completely off the wagon. Here's where we drive the Prius into the dumpster, light it on fire, and then take a selfie. At this point, there is no reason for anybody to be getting their various undergarments in a bunch if a prosecutor from the U.S. Attorney's Office in Los Angeles swings by to just watch the process being carried out, especially given that there are some state and federal primary ballots being cast. It's not as though they say, "All right, Jill, you take all of the local ballots over to this room. We're going to count all of the federal ballots over here." That's not how that works. It's not how the ballots are printed. So the Attorney General, suggesting that the Los Angeles attorney for the U.S. Attorney's Office is going to grab a bunch of Karen Bass, ballots, stuff it in his pocket and bolt? No, that's more of an Illinois Democrat kind of a thing. But they're having a rough day themselves because of the Bears. So going to be interesting to see how in the next couple of days, I'm sure there will be some, blistering accusations made. Gavin Newsom's crew on the California side is still reeling from saying that the Lincoln reflecting pool was going to look atrocious. And it's unlike a Gavin Newsom project, which never finishes. Now the Lincoln, the reflecting pool in Washington, D.C. is actually filling with water because, this administration can actually finish a couple of things it starts. That said, let's bring it over to the roundhoused fistfight, wonderful hoots, riots, and shenanigans outside of Delaney Hall in New Jersey. Now, again, this is an ongoing situation, so there may be a smidgen of a chance that some of this changes over the next couple of hours. According to a statement from the city of Newark, they have told all of their police officers that they're going to be clearing out of the area in front of Delaney Hall this evening, which is a rather nice, balmy Friday evening. This follows a series of clashes that occurred last night. So here's what things looked like outside of Delaney Hall, a federal detention facility in Newark, yesterday. Now, looking at this clip sent to us over by Nick Sordor, I mean, clearly there's no reason for police to be there tonight. So it's rather suspicious, but at least there wasn't any incidents of violence today. Oh, wait, yes, there were. So a couple of incidents today, individuals getting shoved, a good amount of huffing and puffing, kind of blow the house down situation. There have been a couple of arrests made. Actually, this one just after 7 p.m. Eastern this evening. This clip is just now into us. So a couple of arrests that are being made. Good times, exciting. Spicy language included. There have also been water bottles and rocks thrown at vehicles trying to leave the facility, like even small sedans. Like somebody trying to get their Hyundai Sonata out of the detention facility, getting the windshield of his vehicle broken is not something that I would suggest is, peaceful protesting. But I mean, hey, Very nice, exciting. A little bit before then, Allison, I'd keep your hand on the dump button just in case. He starts to drive forward. And then Captain Cyclist Biker Man does the power throw with the water bottle. Causes a good amount of damage to the windshield. So things are going swimmingly over in New Jersey at the present time. Now, there are a series of lawsuits that are now being thrown out. New Jersey Attorney General Jennifer Davenport, whatever, filed a lawsuit against the company that operates Delaney Hall, demanding, quote, full access to the facility for inspection. The lawsuit says that allegations of health concerns come from public reporting. But here's the problem. New Jersey's own health department has already swept that entire facility from head to toe, from top to bottom, from Graham Platner to James Tallarico. Sorry, I shouldn't repeat myself. And have found nothing in any term of healthcare violation whatsoever. So why we're filing weird random lawsuits, it's a bizarre situation. Radio crew, we're going to send you over to the commercial. We're going to continue on the live stream. No commercials here. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast on the Daily Signal. And that is true. If you're ever curious, if you tune into the show live here with us, we hang out together, good pals and such, then you don't have any commercial breaks and stepaways and that kind of stuff. There may be a sponsor read a little bit later in the show, but that's something that we do just for you. That's right. While the radio crew's over at the old commercial corral, let's talk about Tom Homan, because he addresses right to the point to a CBS reporter the regard of this healthcare allegation in the Delaney Hall.
Mr. Homan, you say that the reports of bad, poor conditions are misleading and inaccurate. In a lawsuit this week, New Jersey officials described overcrowding at Delaney Hall, lack of ventilation.
Let's talk about that real quick, overcrowding. False, negative, lie. It's a 1,000-bed facility. They had 706 people. 706 people in a 1,000-bed facility. Not even close to capacity. There's no overcrowding.
But they also described inadequate medical care, unsanitary food, unchecked spread of communicable diseases like COVID-19 and influenza.
By the way, this is what they're trying to suggest, the public reporting. And to be fair, the CBS reporter here, he's just reading what the other reports have said. This isn't a CBS report. But suggesting, oh man, it's like the Holocaust in there. They all are passing diseases and they're sleeping on wooden slats. I mean, they only give them 1 2x4 to eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then they play Old MacDonald Had a Farm just all hours of the day and night. It's torture, man.
Unsanitary bathroom conditions. And lastly, potentially inadequate tuberculosis infection control practices. And that's coming from the New Jersey Department of Health, not some politician. How does that square with what you're telling me now?
I was there. I went to medical facilities. We talked to the doctors and nurses. They said everybody's getting their medication on time. Now, if something broke out, look, this is talking about detention facility. It happens in prisons and jails. If something contagious comes out, other people get sick, just like they do in the public, just like they would do in a hotel, like they do on a cruise ship. Some contagious diseases will spread, but they immediately, the medical program in our facilities immediately take control of that. We got negative pressure rooms.
Now, by the way, what's interesting here is that the Trump administration has attempted to speed up the processing of illegal immigrants that are being held at these facilities, and individuals who have legally immigrated here, whose immigration status and their green card status is now being questioned because of active and anti-American political activity here in the United States. If you're not a citizen, you don't get to do that. And by the way, if we're at war with another polity, you're not allowed to engage in who we're at war with rhetoric either. That's not a free speech thing you get to do, just to let you remind you of very basic common sense. But when it comes to these individuals who are waiting for processing, the Trump administration tried to get them in front of a lot of immigration judges and to have larger hearings where multiple individuals are brought before the judge at once. And several lawsuits parachuted in, like the 101st, and said, you can't do that. That's terrible. This has to be dragged out for weeks and months and years. It's such a scam. Now, the Democrats have decided to make this their whole big hullabaloo, and they are losing it to the nth degree over the illegal immigration issue. They have made it their entire platform. And do I recommend it? No, I really don't. I do not recommend it whatsoever. But alas, that just seems to be what's brought before the book. So Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, various other members of Congress this week have spent their entire week complaining that a Reconciliation 2.0, the most lukewarm reconciliation package that just funded ICE and Border Patrol. Oh, and by the way, funded ICE and Border Patrol to get things that Democrats demanded. They said, we want body cameras. And so Republicans said, well, those don't grow on trees. We got to buy them, and then you got to buy the servers to store the data. You got to buy all the SD cards to, pull out and process so that you can regret asking for body cameras later. Well, now it's happening. Body cameras are coming. We got to bring the radio crew back from commercial. I have so much more to share with you this evening. You're going to love it or hate it. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal.
Dancing in the moonlight. is the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. The entire dumpster fire that is the Democrats' position in Congress right now is, of course, horribly distracted by James Platner. And we're just horribly distracted by James Tallarico. There's a lot of problems that they've got going on at the moment regarding their candidates. And we haven't even talked about the Al-Qaeda adjacent member of Congress, or excuse me, candidate for Congress out of New Jersey. We haven't talked about some of the other wonderful Mamdani endorsed individuals who are, they're pieces of work. That's not what Democrats have time to focus on. They're actually thankful they have something that they can run to and avoid all of the conversation about. This comes to good old Chuck Schumer and others freaking out about the Trump administration's approach on immigration. So, for example, Mazie Hirono of Hawaii, who we just found out may actually not know how to write her own name. She's trying to do this whole ICE is Gestapoing everybody. It's a little old, a little tired. Here you go.
I think this is a fairly bizarre hearing, to tell you the truth. So President Trump spent all of 2024 insisting that he was going to go after immigrants who commit serious crimes, the so-called worst of the worst.
And by the way, he has. I've seen the photos, you've seen the photos, a lot of videos of individuals who have committed grossly heinous crimes have been grabbed, pulled off the street, put in detention facilities, and then deported. But it is then individuals like, Senator Chris Van Hollen, who throws a fit and says, that's not an MS-13 wife beater. That's Maryland man. I must go have a margarita with him in El Salvador. So, you want cops to be able to do their jobs, but when you put a very large, obese body in a red blazer, body slamming federal agents while the officers are trying to do their jobs, it can take a little bit longer. Kind of common sense there, Mazie.
And yet he, like with almost everything else that Trump has said in 2024, and before that, I might add, that was a lie. Instead, his regime has indiscriminately...
By the way, it's regime, not regime there, Candace.
...gone after all immigrants, not just those who are undocumented, but legal immigrants and people who have done everything the right way. So a lot of people just get swept into this desire to... on the part of mainly Stephen Miller, apparently, to get rid of immigrants in our country. So the president... By
the way, this entire statement is supposed to eventually get down to a series of questions for members at the hearing. She whines for another 2 or 3 minutes. Oh, the visas are getting canceled. Oh, it's Trump is trying to get rid of birthright citizenship. This is the last thing that they've got. The very last thing. Is it going to be effective? Is it going to be useful? I don't personally believe so. I suppose that we will find out. Now, there's a lot else. There's a lot more to dive into. The media is also trying this, not just the Democrat Party leadership over on The View. And again, I know how much you guys love The View. It is important, though, to see what the mainstream demographic believes about these particular issues. So what's being fed to individuals on what Disney calls news. That's what Disney says this is a news program. Here you go.
I think you can separate feeling proud of America, feeling proud of being an American, feeling proud of the exceptionalism and resilience of this country, and feeling really ashamed and embarrassed and horrified by the American government right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I never thought in my entire life I would see U.S. citizens killed for exercising their right to protest, like they killed Alex Preddy and Renee Good.
Oh, Alex Preddy and Renee Good. Oh, yes. Famous for trying to drive over federal law enforcement officials. And then also bringing a loaded gun to a protest, again, getting involved with fights and agents the previous day. Again, a smart decision? No. Just exercising their free right to protest? Also, I'm afraid not, Steve.
The streets of Minneapolis, or small 5-year-old children used as human bait. Thousands of children are being held in detention centers all over.
Used as human bait. Yes. Otherwise known as the dad ditching his child because he didn't want to get rounded up by the popo. Yes. I would rather ditch my child and be on the run from the feds than stay with my kids. Yes, that's the move. That's the strats right there.
Over this country, like Dilley outside of San Antonio, in deplorable conditions. They are dying from lack of medical care.
She doesn't believe that. She believed that, she'd be there. Seriously, if you really believed that, you'd be there. You have the money. Go down there and go live from there. Smart Alec, I'm not seeing it. Where are the videos? Show me the proof. Show me the sources. They have none. And that is one of the things Americans are holding a higher level of expectation for moving forward. And now there's some other nonsense that comes into this, just despising America in general, that seems to be the theme of the Democrats running this year in the midterms, the 250th year of the country. We'll come back to some of that later, though, because, of course, whether it's Chuck Schumer saying that this is a $70 billion ICE Gestapo funding package, whatever, Hillary Clinton suggests that it's evil and terrible, and it's also going to give the Trump administration the ability to pay everyone who was at January 6th. Congressman Shri Tanadar took a minute from drawing on his eyebrows to suggest that it was $70 billion to terrorize communities, and he will vote hell no on this bill once it comes to the House. Exciting, thrilling, just good, stunning, brave, wonderful. All of this in an attempt to distract from what is a major problem for the Democrats. The major problem for the Democrats is that they have two different elections to win. They have two. They have two different elections to win. So the first election that they have to win is the primary. And all of their radical young base, who grows more socialist and anti-American and pro-Islamist every single year. Every single year, it gets worse and worse and worse. That's who votes in the primaries. So you'll get, for example, El Sayed up in Michigan, who is a nutcase, who says he wants to abolish ICE and he wants to put all of these sanctions on international U.S. partners and thinks that it's the Jews who are responsible for everything, and that kind of nonsense. The Democrat side has a young base that is willing to come out and vote in the primaries and get these nutcases over the finish line. And it's hilarious to watch because, in the case of El Sayed, he, of the three main Democrat candidates running in that primary currently, according to every available bit of polling, he is the least likely to beat the Republican opponent in the general. But he's who they're going with. And the same with Maine. All of the young socialisty people in Maine are coming out to support Graham Platner. And the same with James Tallarico in Texas. Oh, he's so bold and innovative and wonderful. And once they get the candidate over the primary line, they try to do what has worked up until about 3 or 4 years ago, which is, oh, we're going to run the candidate and then we're going to suddenly pretend that they're moderate and wonderful and friendly, and it's just Abigail Spanberger. She wouldn't do anything radical.
Nope.
It's just Mickey Sherrill. She wouldn't, fund a private fund just to give money to illegal immigrants in legal cases that New Jersey citizens don't have access to.
Nope.
Well, I mean, that isn't working anymore. It's not. And the polling data reflects this. On the Republican side of the aisle, they have their own issues for sure. However, funnily enough, the Republican base, which back in 2020, 2022, might have gotten some candidates out there that weren't as savory, that weren't as beloved, weren't as electable in the general. Now the Republicans have shifted to an area where the MAGA crew and kind of a more traditionally conservative voting base is able to work in both the primary and the general. Radio crew, we're going to send you guys to the commercial and get into how much worse it's getting over on the Graham Platner side of things. This is the dumpster fire that is not going to be extinguished anytime soon. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. All right, so as we talked about yesterday, there was a New York Times article which came out and said Graham Platner has this troubled past. And in this troubled past, he dated some girls who said he was great, and then he dated some girls who said they were in unsettling situations. And then 22 paragraphs down, finally, it got to an old friend of mine, Lindsay Fifield, who in 2013 dated Graham Platner. That is confirmed. The Instagram photos, the text messages, the corroboration, it's all there. And she stated on the record that he grabbed her by the shoulders, left marks, shook her, shoved her into a room and then held the door shut, locked her in the room to keep her in there. It was a very volatile relationship. Man's abusive. Gun crime allegations and all other kinds of insane stuff. Now, the New York Times tried to keep the story hidden. They sat on the story for weeks according to information today from Lindsay Fifield, who brought the receipts. The New York Times, most likely, I actually do know the answer to this one, but I have to be a little more careful because, broadcast error and all that. The New York Times allegedly knew that, man, there's a kind of a chance that another outlet might run the story before they did. And so, dragged kicking and somewhat screaming, the New York Times watered down the report and then published it to the broader public. And boy, howdy, was it a mess. So if you're wondering, if you're keeping track, Graham Platner has now been hit with allegations that are corroborated of the following. He got a Totenkopf Nazi tattoo in 2005, which, by the way, he then told other individuals he knew it was his Nazi Totenkopf tattoo, even though he's tried to go back on that. We'll get to that in a second. In 2013, he had an active, he allegedly abused women around 2013, threatened and concerned women with heavy drinking as well that he dated between 2011 and 2013. A history of social media posts in which he wishes death on others, says he masturbates in porta potties, and all other kinds of just really weird stuff. Wishing death on people, said that there's a lot of women who deserve rape. Concerning things, no? That even CNN analysts, whom I was on the air with, said, yeah, this dude's kind of a major problem. But alas, then, furthermore, active all the way up until 4 days ago, a social media account on Kick, which is an anonymous messaging platform that is set up, that is according to all different kinds of various outlets. And I mean, you would have to work to find outlets that haven't reported on the number of predators communicating and grooming minors on kick.com. Man had a little profile picture of him in just a towel. We're going to get to that here in a minute. And then all of the other crazy stuff since then. Again, alleged gun crimes, him admitting that he bought cocaine a couple of years ago. Some wild stuff. And then, of course, lying about his past, his schooling, lying about his oyster farm, lying about there's so much in this guy's closet, skeleton-wise. So this is now resulting in a split in the Democrat Party. Because Republicans, here's the secret, Republicans would really like this guy to be the candidate. They would. Notice that a lot of this stuff has broken before the primary has officially taken place. Has officially taken place. It's not an October surprise right before the election, boys, girls, and squirrels. This guy's problematic. And there are a lot of Maine voters who are currently on the record saying, yeah, nope, I don't think so. And even Janet Mills, governor of Maine, has said, I'm actually still on the ballot, guys. And so there's a major problem. Here is the fun part, though. That young, crazy base and half of the Democrat-sided media, yeah, they don't agree with the other half. And so infighting begins, and it's already getting ugly. We're going to bring the radio crew back and talk about it. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal.
What's going on in there?
The Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
369 girls wanna drink wine. Tell them I know.
Welcome back. Democrat infighting. It's here. It's fresh. It's a really, really bad time for it. And when there's a lovely long weekend, I'd like to take you back on a bit of memory lane here. So let's see. We'll need a little something to set the mood. A little something here. What do we got? Where's back in the 2024 election season, Joe Biden was dead. He went up against Trump. Trump took him behind the woodshed and beat him in front of a national audience. I'll be honest, I don't know what he's saying either. And then, the next couple of days were magical. They were magical. And why? What made them so blissfully magical? It went through essentially the same process that you're seeing play out right now with Graham Platner. Only Graham Platner is morally and ethically dead, whereas Joe Biden was, morally and physically dead. So Graham Platner, in the same way during the 2024 election campaign, first you had a couple of very careful pundits, Democrat strategists who said, Joe's dead. We're not going to keep him, are we? And then you would get the occasional House member who would say, I don't know if we should probably be keeping, Joe Biden around here. And then, if you recall, the Democrat establishment went after those Democrat House members and took campaign funding from them for saying that maybe Joe Biden was dead. And then you had a couple of Democrat senators that said something was up. And then eventually that pressured the change in roles in office. Now, this brings us to what's happening right now. I bring you Representative Madeleine Dean from Pennsylvania's 4th, not exactly a moderate Democrat for sure. Here she is having a bit of a panic attack on CNN about good old Graham Platner and the festering, rotting skeletons that are pouring out of his closet.
Do you support Graham Platner's candidacy for Senate in Maine?
I think it's so distressing, all of the stories that are coming out, and they're more and more, it seems, by the hour. I'm not a voter in Maine, but he has disqualified himself in my eyes. He is not qualified to be a representative, a senator. We'll see what Maine does about it. And
oh no, oh boy, oh yikes. Now that can't be good. Oh gee willikers, that doesn't sound very good. Now, we are in a pretty bizarre place on a couple of things. We are reaching the point where, of course, there are senators who are saying, yeah, it's gross, the dude needs to leave. Yikes, how about no? John Fetterman, of course.
Let me follow up on something you said there, because I don't think that we have this reporting.
Hey, producer Allison, I'm not sure if there is a certain word for a male appendage that we can air on the FCC side of the air. So if you would so sweetly and so kindly keep your hand on the dump button, because that's going to come up real quick. Because you see, Senator John Fetterman, he's not just saying that Graham Platner, should step down and that he's gross. See, Fetterman's been in on some of those secret Democrat senator meetings. And, Fetterman may have just alleged on CNN this afternoon that Platner was not just communicating possibly with minors, definitely with other women, but that, like a certain former individual named Wiener, he may have been sending him pictures of his wiener. So hand on that dump button here, because again, I know that YouTube and some streaming platforms are fine with it. FCC air, I'm not sure.
Did you say, or did Senate Democrats discuss Graham Platner posting pictures of his, you called it his dick, did you discuss this in a lunch?
No, what I'm saying is that he has been sending sexually explicit kinds of messaging with women, and I assume over the 10 years that he was a membership in that, and
okay, so you're assuming that that's what he was doing. That's what I just wanted to follow up on, because if that's something that is in active conversation among Senate Democrats, I think would be of interest to our audience.
A guy that he talked about and described dicks, he's already done that in his writings. And when he would used to sit in the porty potties, he would say that he would want to master.
All right, enough of that. Not exactly good, not exactly grand, not exactly stellar and super duper. So thank you to producer Alan for getting that dump taken care of there. So those things all said, and Network Air is just a wonderful, magical place. It's kind of a problem. The way that he describes that, the Democrats are definitely in the chambers going, is there anything else? Is there anything else? Is there anything else? And every single time, this clip provided to us by Western Lensman over on X, he says, no, there's nothing. I don't know what there could be. Like 3 or 4 times now. Check it out.
I'm wondering, are there other skeletons from your past that still may emerge in this race?
No.
But the GOP is going to dig up everything and more that they can.
Yeah. And probably lie at some point.
Is there something new you want to get ahead of?
No.
People have to take you at your word that that's true and that there's nothing else. Is that what you are saying?
Yes.
Okay. So I would like to make this rather clear here. And I want to get ahead of this. There's going to be more. There's absolutely going to be more. And what you just heard was Fetterman alleging, again, if there is a guy who has a picture of himself in a towel, seriously, if there's a guy who has a picture of himself in a towel, a grown man, who has been cheating on his wife since 2023, who just deactivated his Kick Messenger account, again, the website for predators going to somewhat anonymously message minors, that guy definitely has sent pictures of his appendages to people. And you know who knows this? MS Now's Chris Hayes even knows this. We played one clip last night during the interview. It was 8 p.m. last night, June the 4th, where, again, he's trying to, you can actually hear Chris Hayes' soul leaving his body because he kind of signed on to the Graham Platner Express. Oh, yay, he's wonderful and amazing. And no. But it's at one point, he asks a question that could have gone a little bit differently about these women that you've been messaging other than your wife, that now we have some other concerns about because this is a pattern of behavior decades old. And your Captain Frontrunner, who, by the way, the Democrat Party in Maine had ditched someone else who was considered too problematic to move to Platner over Janet Mills, which LOL. But anywho, here's this from last night.
Just to be clear, just about revisiting, right? I mean, I think channeling concerns, I think, of Democratic voters and Democratic officials and a lot of people, right? That
same way that the eventual questions, once the media realized that Biden was dead and there was nothing they could do, and it was going to be the albatross around the donkey's neck, they said, well, I'm just channeling voters' concerns. He's trying so hard not to be hit with the harpoon.
It's not a question of revisiting, right? It's new revelations, like vis-a-vis, texts or pictures. And I know you want to give some privacy in marriage, but I really do feel like I need to get these answers from you, which is like the people you were texting with, whatever that was, in whatever context, they were adult women. You knew that, and it was consensual. Is that true?
Yes.
And you have that you confirmed that you knew their age.
Oh, you knew their age. Oh, because Kik, the messaging platform, is literally the place to go when, the age, there's no clear, it's anonymous. Who's to say?
Yes. Oh, God. I mean, yeah. Yes, of course.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll take your word for it. Says the guy who has gone around for ages saying that if a guy broke into his house, then he would rape the man, not in a gay way, but to assert dominance. So a huge congratulations to James Tallarico for now being only the second gayest Democrat in this Senate season. Goodness gracious, what a mess. What an absolute mess. And it's not getting any better because, and this is the joy of doing this work, folks, there are a lot of young, outraged, very grumpy people who have decided that because they hate Republicans, because there's a Republican woman who was part of alleging these, part of these allegations, that fine, even if he did it, I'm okay with it. Even if he did it, it's good. I mean, Kyle Kulinski, the guy with Secular Talk, who also co-hosts Breaking Points, we're going to get to Breaking Points here in a second, Left Wing podcast, says, even if he sexted my mother, I would vote for him. Wow. Okay. That's a weird thing to admit in front of the entire country. All right, producer Allison, I'm going to ask you to very kindly send folks over to the commercial because I would never give you the heart attack of having to censor what is about to be played language-wise on the FCC air stuff. So we'll catch you guys after your commercial break. Imagine a bunch of people emphatically and with lots of four-letter words saying that they will support Graham Platner even if he does all of the stuff he's already said he did. So it's the Tony Kinnett Cast. We'll catch you on the flip side of this commercial break. All right, live stream crew, viewer discretion is advised. And by that, I mean it's James Carville, the former Bill Clinton campaign manager and crazy kook, and then Crystal Ball of Breaking Point. So this is the husband of the guy, I believe. Yes. This is the husband of the dude who said that it was totally be fine if Platner sexted his mom. Oh my gosh. Here you go.
One of the pieces of this is who is the scrutiny applied to and why? And Katie Gluck is an ideological actor. That just is what it is in terms of her reporting. Obviously, the Republican here is also an ideological actor as well. And so I think that is, for me, the main media takeaway is, look, there's things on the record that suggest Susan Collins had an affair in the 70s. Have we?
Yeah. See, it's okay that Graham Platner, again, got a totem cough Nazi tattoo, unlike anyone else. Just like in like '05, and then came home and then had a string of possibly very domestically abusive, gun crime filled, other really illegal things filled relationships. and then said, yeah, I'd like to rape men, not in a gay way, if they're in my house. And really, that's just, Susan Collins is alleged to have had an affair in the 70s. Oh, yes, that's the same. Yes. I'll go ahead and empty this one out here for you. Ken Paxton is also alleged to have had an affair. You know what? There's a difference between you being someone who has a Nazi tattoo on your boobie and carried out a bunch of really gross actions and maybe, battered a couple of women around. And, basically the old Eric Swalwell treatment. I'm sorry, but after you Bill Cosby kind of treatment, I don't think it's the same as infidelity in the 70s.
You had any reporting about that and what that says about her character, and voters are grappling with it? Have we interviewed all of her exes? No. Graham Platner challenges power. He challenges the oligarchy, and he challenges the powers that be on Israel.
Oh, so this is literally the Nick Fuentes, Tucker Carlson argument, but on the left. Well, I guess all of that crap's on. It's the identity politics. I can get over whatever his real character, whatever they've done, because they are against someone that I don't like. And so I'm willing to side with someone who is genuinely, truly awful. Again, as one of the comments pointed out, dude was married in 23. He's already been running around on his wife. And by the way, you feel free to interview my exes. There's a lot of crew on the left who has decided to go all in on this. Well, any ex is going to say you beat the hell out of them. What relation? Well, we've all had drunk arguments. Have we? Have we? Anyway, here's James Carville just losing it.
Maybe we need a combat veteran right on that Senate floor who is fucked up, who every time these assholes go to vote for another war, Susan Collins, you're on all the wars that he got shot at in Evan Commons. Susan Collins voted for all of it.
I love this, as though he were drafted. He signed up to go. And not only did that, he signed up to go, he then became a mediocre contractor for Blackwater, who on the inside of other contracting organizations is still made fun of today because of how useless he is. Oh, we need a crazy guy who says he's going to rape dudes. Oh, yeah. Good luck. We're going to bring the radio crew back. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast.
It's the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIPC.
Welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated first on 93 WIBC. And when I pointed out over the commercial break, you have guys like the Breaking Points podcast crew and on the left who say, well, we got to support him because he's crazy. And then James Carville who says, well, maybe what we need is a guy who beats women and threatens to rape men and all of the other insane. There's just so much. And by the way, again, as I've said, there's going to be more. There is going to be so much more. Now, you even have people like, you even have Jake Tapper on CNN going, are you sure? You sure you want to go all in on this one? What if a Republican veteran was this like crazy and awful? And here's the response. Yeesh.
But what would you say to a Republican who says, James, if there was a Republican combat veteran who had a Nazi tattoo, a Totenkopf tattoo, you wouldn't be so forgiving? What would you say to that?
It's true. I would say you're exactly right.
Howdy. Again, it's very good that Democrats have double standards. Otherwise, they'd have no standards. I do feel bad for guys like, for example, Representative James Golden, who is a fairly moderate Democrat in Maine, which, by the way, in case you're wondering what House Democrats kind of as a leadership cast are concerned with here, Hakeem Jeffries, because he's on his way out. He's not going to be minority leader anymore. It's not happening. Ro Khanna is gunning for it. And of course, if there's someone to go and hold a rally right now with the guy alleged and accused of all kinds of abuse, it would be the guy who brought an actual individual who groomed women for Jeffrey Epstein as his State of the Union guest. Ro Khanna is going to do a little event because he's standing by. We'll get to his statement in a second. But Hakeem Jeffries has just punted the ball right away. He says, oh, it's not up to me. It's up to Chuck Schumer.
Well, let me say more generally, violence against women in any way, shape, or form is completely and totally unacceptable. And that should be clear to everyone, and everyone needs to draw that bright line in the sand. In terms of the allegations that have been waged with respect to this particular candidate for the Senate,
This is what's called corporate or academic speak. This is when you want to say something, but with a lot of words so it fills time. So you pull out the vocabulary, the old thesaurus, and you suggest that, well, if we look at the consequences of the significance of time in these allegations, both spurious and considerably concerning, then you can draw out any kind of a statement. He doesn't want to answer this question. And then he loses the will to finish corporate filibustering through the interview and just says it.
Follow it closely. I will continue to defer to Leader Schumer and Senator Gillibrand in terms of the best path forward in Maine. I haven't had a conversation with Ro Khanna about this. Listen, John, we're focused on trying to take back control of the House of Representatives.
Oh, and then he said, we'll let Schumer decide. You know, it's up to Schumer to decide what's going on with the Senate. Oh boy, not very good, Bob. Again, Schumer, he won't even answer at all. He's literally like, any other questions, anything at all? Please don't ask me about this. I have severe hernias right now.
On Graham Platner, are you satisfied with the explanations he's given for the controversies his campaign has faced right now? Are you concerned about what we've heard?
I met with Graham Platner today. We're going to beat Susan Collins and take back the Senate.
Yes.
So you're saying that Janet Mills, your preferred candidate, there's been rattlings that she should get back in.
I mean, not just rattlings. She's said, I'm still on the ballot. I'm here. I'm Janet Mills.
Standing behind Graham Platner, to be clear here?
We're going to beat Susan Collins and take back the Senate. Yes.
Does Democrats sticking behind Graham Platner, does that hurt the credibility in attacking St. Paxton?
We're going to beat Susan Collins and take back the Senate. Any other subject you got? Any other subject? Yes. Yeah.
I love it. I do. I love it because this is the same crew who says, oh, we got to respect the press. We got to respect the American people. They deserve answers and all of this stuff. What is the point of being leadership if you won't even take responsibility for your own caucus? I'm not going to say famously because God willing, I'm never going to be that arrogant. But it might be known to a few of you out there. I have no third rails. Whenever I go do an interview, whenever I go into any kind of a conversation, I have no third rails. You are more than welcome to ask me anything at all about my history, relationships, stances, prior takes on whatever. Because it is far easier just to stick to the stuff that is real rather than doing all of this backhanded mental gymnastics nonsense. Carrying water for causes and people just because you are told to usually ends up with you getting screwed over and that bucket over your own head. Carrying water for Graham Platner, as many are desperately trying to do right now, that's not going to go very well at all. Again, when I mentioned it earlier, here's Ro Khanna. He's going up to do a rally this evening.
The Nazi tattoo was something that he owned up to. He said it was a mistake. He did it when he was signing up to serve this country.
By the way, he has since changed his story and said, oh, actually, it's just a skull and crossbones again. He said that with Chris Hayes last night. So he simultaneously wants to say it was a mistake and I didn't know what it was to, oh, it's a skull and crossbones. What's the big deal? You can't have it both ways there, Simple Simon. But anyway, Rose, trying his best.
Military, and I guess I have a view of redemption, and he has unequivocally owned up to it, said that it was wrong, that he learned from it. And
I love I actually believe in redemption. In redemption, I believe this is the guy who, again, went with Thomas Massie on the floor of the House and doxed innocent individuals who were just part of an FBI lineup who looked like a guy the FBI was investigating over ties to Jeffrey Epstein. Mr. Redemption over here. Yeah. Nope. I don't think so. So here's what Ro Khanna said about going to this rally. Quote, the behavior described in the New York Times story was wrong and toxic. Graham has acknowledged that and sought redemption. The idea that just because the guy believes, by the way, there are a lot of Republicans who believe some things that I might be in favor of and that I don't sign on to, I don't stand next to, who believe a lot of really gross things. The idea that I am required to stand next to someone who is abhorrent just because they also believe that abortion is wrong. No, I'm afraid not. There's a little bit more that's necessary. Now, are there times where there are some binary choices? Yes. The primary hasn't happened yet. So just a real thrilling excitement, for him, a real hoot, I'm sure. That brings us over to another major development on the federal prosecution over against the Southern Poverty Law Center. So our Tyler O'Neill has done quite a bit on the investigating, and now Democrats are torn internally over the SPLC. Why? Because as we start going through the legal process called discovery, which is when in a lawsuit, you get a certain point in where the lawyers and the judge agree, all right, it's time to look at all your stuff. Show me your cards. And you dig out all of the emails and the documents and the pertinent information, and then it's revealed to the court. And now going through some of this discovery process, we find out that the SPLC has, been doing a lot of funding of the KKK. So we're going to get into some of that over on the live stream. The story, not funding the KKK. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. Radio crew will catch you on Monday. Take care. All right. In the meantime, yes, this is a particularly interesting story. I've been looking forward to sharing it with you today. So the Southern Poverty Law Center, before we get to this particular clip, they have denied these claims. They've denied that they participated in any kind of fraud by lying about how they were spending money for their nonprofit. It's a major expansion in this lawsuit. Check it out.
The superseding indictment builds on an 11-count charge that the Justice Department filed against the SPLC in April. The new document alleges how $4 million worth of donations to the SPLC were used by informants to in part grow extremist groups, buy materials for cross burnings, and purchase materials to make KKK robes and hoods. The DOJ says some SPLC workers knew that donor money was being used for these activities. And in one instance, federal prosecutors allege an SPLC employee actually encouraged two people to remain in the KKK even though they wanted to leave.
That right there. No, hang on. We're back away from the clip for a second. That right there is a big issue. That's a problem. That would be a big no-no. You can't do that as an informant. The reason that, so a couple of years ago, there was this big scandal that, there were these 3% right-wingers who were going to go kidnap Gretchen Whitmer of Michigan. And then we got into the case and found out that there was an FBI informant who said, hey guys, you know what you should do? You should kidnap Gretchen Whitmer. And there was one individual who was in that group of 3%ers who, as soon as that was suggested, said, nope, I'm out. No thanks. I'll pass. Don't want to be part of it. I'm good. And the FBI informant encouraged him and said, no, you should really stay in here. You should stay in this group. You can't do that. That, ladies and gentlemen, would actually be entrapment. In a nonprofit situation, if you are truly an informant, and there are very, very, very few cases, and I mean at state level, federal level, there's like none, but very few cases in which a private organization can truly say, I was an informant on illegal activity. You can be an informant, but you have to be neutral, which means you have to just stand there and watch. This is one of the reasons why snitches are supposed to be the people who say things differently. That's how they get caught being snitches. Because they don't ever participate directly in the activity itself. They don't actually encourage others to do the crime. That's a crime. So if the SPLC is like, no, you gotta stay in the KKK. Think of all the N-words we haven't said yet. Come on, think about we're having a barbecue and cross burning next week. You're gonna miss it. Janine's bringing her special acacia wood cross, and she's gonna put charcoal on. It's gonna be a real big thing. We're gonna even tie some nooses in a couple NASCAR garages. You sure you want to miss that? You can't do that. That is illegal. So my firm props to the SPLC for indeed digging just as deep a hole as we believed that they were going to dig in the first place. So those things set aside, we're going to cut away to a quick commercial reset. When we come back in, we're going to give you an update on what's going on with the Middle Eastern and the Iranian situation. Because again, we're heading into a weekend, so what does that mean? A bunch of people are telling you, a deal's almost here. And then a bunch of other people are telling you, it's all over and it's terrible and we're losing. Just infinite ad nauseum nonsense. So we're going to break down the actual data. What's actually going on in the ground, in the air, on the coast of the Iranian conflict, the Middle East at large. Some other foreign policy stuff as well. Some economic news. I know, you're already sitting on the edge of your seat for econ news. It's going to be a good time though. So stick around for the bonus tonus section of the show. We'll be back in just a second.
This is the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
All right, gang, let's keep on rocking. Why? Because we have got a little bit on the international side that we need to discuss. So one of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC head official dudes, sat down with CNN. Why? To give an exclusive, exciting, super duper thrilling interview all about how the United States is truly down on its luck. Things are all over. It's not good for the United States. Why? Well, I'll let him share what's going on.
Final question. What's your message to Donald Trump?
Mr. Trump must make decisions independently of Israel. He must give what is the rights of the Iranian people and stop the blockade.
Okay, so first and foremost, LOL. Now we've got, so one thing should be pointed out before we even begin. There are a couple of shots during this interview where you can see the individual's hands shaking. The dude's terrified. They're not having a good time over there. The regime's not. You can see the guy's uniform's crumpled. It's dirty. Things are not going very well for Iran. So the best that he's got, what's your message to Trump is, don't listen to Israel. Why does he have to say that? Because it matters. Why isn't he saying, this is my message to Trump, cut a deal, release the money? You know, there's this area later on where he says Trump needs to release this $24 billion to the regime, which is not going to happen. But anywho, you need to, end this, do this kind of thing. The reason that all he has, as far as a demand from President Trump, is about Israel is because there are currently multiple factions of the IRGC, as well as two different diplomatic, if you want to call them that, civil factions of the Iranian president's office that are giving different signals here and there to the United States. There are a series of explosions that have been occurring this week over in eastern Iraq, near the provinces closest to Iran, that is in Iraqi Kurdistan. So there's some questions as whether there might be some Iranian-backed militias that are trying to get ahead of the Kurds rising up and doing something. I'm not going to speculate on that, just telling you what has been said kind of on the broader intelligence side of the wire. This is the claim, though, is that, well, Donald Trump, he needs to, really look out so that he doesn't fall prey to Israel or whatever. Not necessarily thinking that's really going to pull you over. Here's another clip from the interview.
Wouldn't a war be catastrophic for Iran as well, though, if it was a big bombing campaign?
If the war continues and the naval blockade is not lifted,
all right, let's take a little poll here. What do you think he's about to say? If the war continues, and if the blockade is not lifted, here we go. We've had so many of these so far. We're going to put a crypto super toll on the Strait of Hormuz. Did that happen? Okay. We're going to blow up all of the bases in the Middle East. Okay. We're going to conquer part of Iraq. Okay. We're going to unleash super terrorist attacks in the United States and Europe and everywhere. Okay. None of those things happen. We're going to suddenly make the president of the United States dead. Did that happen? Okay, all right. None of those have worked. So what do you think he's going to say? Oh, also they said we're going to sink the whole U.S. Navy. Yeah, that didn't happen either. All right, let's see what Ginger Snap here actually suggests he's going to do this time.
We'll drag the war to the Indian Ocean.
We're going to drag the war to the Indian Ocean. Subhanallah, with what navy are you dragging the war to the Indian Ocean? My dude, you have 4 Venezuelan drug boat skiffers. The United States has shot every last mine boat. Where are your drone carriers? Where are the drone carriers? Shahid, where are they at? What do you mean you're dragging the war to the Indian Ocean? And what threat is that to anybody? We're going to, off the coast of India, there's going to be explosions of the likes of which you have never seen. By Allah, we will give them a taste of our shoe. Okay.
The Bab el-Mandeb Strait, the Red Sea, and the Mediterranean. And we will give another
The Mediterranean.
dimension to the war
A new
by
dimension.
attacking these other American
The war's going to be in 3D. Get your glasses. It's going to be an IMAX.
bases that we have been attacking so far. America will definitely suffer much more losses. America.
Okay, Jan. That's real yeah, super duper. All right, that's thrilling and exciting stuff indeed. Also on the international side, and the president of the United States is saying there's some stuff coming real soon. It appears the president is stalling, is waiting for something at this point. Now, as far as the broader Middle East and the Gulf state is concerned, this argument and this talk about Israel is holding it up with ceasefire problems and all of this stuff. It doesn't appear that there's anything Iran is going to do to actually participate in a deal. It doesn't. It appears that what we are waiting for at this point is that it's soon. Whether that's soon in terms of a month, soon in terms of a week, I don't know. We'll see. The only way that things are going to move is with some kind of a military strike. Now, those things said and aside, regarding CENTCOM right now, earlier this evening, Central Command said, quote, moments ago, again, this is about an hour ago, CENTCOM forces shot down 4 Iranian one-way attack drones that were launched toward the Strait of Hormuz. So notice they say launched toward the Strait of Hormuz. The Iranian Keshem Island on the Strait of Hormuz and some of their prime coastal territory, they're not able to launch a ton of drones and missiles directly off the coastline at the strait anymore, because the United States and the Emirates are actually waltzing through with a couple of airstrike and naval strike packages that are starting to shape some of the coastline that make it more difficult for Iran to close parts of the Strait of Hormuz. Anywho, they say the attack drones posed an immediate threat to regional maritime traffic, which is why the U.S. shot them down. The U.S. forces subsequently struck Iranian coastal surveillance radar sites in Goruk and on Keshem Island to defend against further attacks. American forces remain vigilant and postured to respond to unjustified Iranian aggression in self-defense. There's some questionable data on a United States strike on Sirak, a naval base. I haven't seen a ton on this yet, so I'm not going to postulate too much. The United States forces also seized the tanker Davina as part of the Iranian blockade. So if you think of the Strait of Hormuz, again, that small bend around the Oman and Emirate territory, there's Keshem Island on, well, I guess to your side, I have to do the map in my head. On the western side of the strait is Keshem Island. On the eastern side of the strait is Goruk. That's where the United States Navy leveled 2 strikes. Sorry, had to mirror it for those of you on the camera side of things. So what are we seeing right now? The Navy just continues enforcing the blockade. Now, there's a lot of speculation, by a Russian state media account that the United States is doing super raid training drills in California to maybe plan a Maduro kidnapping style raid. Personally, I think that this is a lot of fishful winking from Russian state media, but they can't be expected to be on the top of their game. They had to put up with Candace Owens this week, so they're like, oh, look, super seizure style raid training exercises. That's just an air assault training. Like, nah. Air assault training happens like that all the time. That's any air assault training ending in Y. So that's the foreign policy stuff. Let's get over to some of the economy, and then we'll take some of those, mail time questions. So on local economy news, again, I know it's a national show. I can't help but laugh just from the pettiest part of my heart. Illinois has lost the Chicago Bears to Indiana. They have. So the Chicago Bears, after allowing the Illinois state legislature to find a new place to build some kind of stadium to accommodate the Chicago Bears, this statement from Chicago Bears chairman McCaskey and president and CEO Kevin Warren, quote, yesterday, the Chicago Bears board of directors met and voted to advance our stadium develop project in Hammond, Indiana, with the exact site to be selected. We believe a world-class stadium project in Hammond will transform the region. And no kidding, man. Hammond and the region needs some transforming. Anyway, connecting northwest Indiana to the south side of Chicago through the loop and across neighborhoods and suburbs, stretching north of the city. It will bring Chicagoland together.
Nope.
And deliver new opportunities to its residents and businesses. Exciting, woohoo, thrilling. Now I will laugh because no one is more upset about this than J.B. Pritzker and the socialists. Truly. So Bernie Sanders and Congressman Greg Cesar, a socialist from Texas, East Austin specifically, he said, quote, "Billionaire team owners keep getting richer while fans keep getting screwed. It's why the Bears may leave Chicago. It's also why Senator Sanders and I introduced the Home Team Act, requiring team owners to offer locals the chance to buy a team before moving it away." Okay, there is no group of locals who have the ability to actually purchase the Chicago Bears. That wasn't going to happen. That little crowdfunding campaign, no, you're not going to socialize sports. Number two, and my personal favorite here, Illinois taxed them to death. All right, Illinois sucks. Illinois is hemorrhaging people. Illinois has lost like 1%. Actually, let me pull the exact data here. In the last couple of years, since 2015, Illinois has balanced between a 1% to 2% loss per year of its population, whereas Indiana has balanced a population gain between 2 and 5%. So Illinois sucks, man. Now, J.B. Pritzker, he's very, very mad. He's very grumpy. He doesn't like that he is being blamed, for the Chicago Bears leaving. So he issued a statement that may have been crafted by Mazie Hirono or Ketanji Brown Jackson with how illiterate it is. Quote, "The Bears have built a storied legacy in Illinois for over 100 years, but have spent the last 6 years, and especially the last few months, shifting their position on a stadium location. That has hindered their progress."
Nope.
"Today appears to be another instance of that, after Illinois leaders have been working with the Bears in good faith."
Nope.
"Governor Pritzker has always been clear that he wants the Bears to stay in Illinois and still remains open to a sensible solution that protects taxpayers." No, it's over. The Bears have announced they're moving. And the Illinois General Assembly adjourned this week without passing a bill to provide funding for Arlington Heights. Indiana said, yeah, we believe long-term revenue to the state of Indiana, because Indiana is a very sports and a very sports tourism-based economy for Indianapolis, and now I guess for the regions. What they want to make the region. The region was either, the northwestern portion of the state was either going to go medical and service industry, kind of like Pittsburgh, or it was going to go into sports tourism. It's going into a little bit of both, but mostly the sports tourism thing. That will, in fact, pay for itself. I know there's a lot of people who say, it's going to saddle us with so much debt forever. Honey, sweetie baby, a lot of franchises have moved and have, in fact, brought the states where they're in a lot of dough. There are some very aggravated pundits going, well, actually, it's going to give everyone so many taxes, and it's such a bad and terrible thing. Look, I'm sure there are a lot of podcast audiences of 800 which are excited to whine about absolutely everything. I just don't care as much as everyone. Oh, this is going to be the thing that breaks the camel's back.
Nope.
No. So, anywho, that brings us over to some broader market stuff here. Just for me, just yours truly here. There was a very, very good jobs report, and the stock market also kind of pooped itself a little bit. So first of all, from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the U.S. economy added 172,000 jobs in May. That is more than double the 80,000 jobs that there was consensus in the expectation. So a lot of economists thought there were only going to be about 80,000 jobs added. 172,000 jobs ended up being added in May. Additionally, the vast majority of those, in fact, 70% of that job growth was for the private sector. By the way, the 30% that came from government was virtually entirely, according to E.J. Antony over at the Heritage Foundation, to local government growth. So it's not like the federal government during the Biden administration saying, oh, we brought back so many jobs, and it's just the federal government hiring everyone to work at the Department of Education or USAID. So the Trump administration providing better job numbers than were expected. Unemployment held at 4.3% as expected. Wages were up 0.3% as expected. March's numbers were revised up from 185,000 gained to 214,000 gained. April's job numbers were revised up from 115,000 to 179,000 jobs gained. Again, in the Biden administration and the first part of the Trump administration, you had a lot of job growth that was reduced down. Now what you're seeing is a very different job market altogether. Now, the stock market responded somewhat negatively to this, and there's a couple of reasons there. But the president did speak on this today up in Eau Claire in Wisconsin. Had a kind of a conversation about roundtable U.S. agriculture, and then talked about the job numbers today. So the president of the United States, I think we actually have that clip ready to go, don't we? Yes, we do. Here you go.
So we're in Wisconsin. We have a big crowd. Again, the job numbers were fantastic today. It's like nobody thought, many times what they thought they'd be. We have factories and plants being built all over our country at a number that we've never had before, ever in our history, and we're doing really well. The situation with Iran seems to be going quite well. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, what would you expect? Something more exciting? No, doesn't need to be. I mean, really, I'll take short statements like that all the live long day. Now, the president also said, well, hey, the stock market should also do well today. The stock market did not, and there's a reason why. Two reasons. Number one, because the jobs report was so good, the stock market appears to believe that the interest rates are going to be kept high for a little while longer. And again, that's because of some of the inflation brought about by the United States actions regarding Iran in the Middle East. There was also a pretty interesting AI sell-off. The NASDAQ sunk 3%. That's the worst single-day drop in nearly 8 months. And the S&P, which was on a 9-week winning streak, ended, the S&P 500 went down today by 1.8%, and the Dow was down just 0.85%. So couple of things here, that are worth pointing out here. Strong jobs, bad for markets on the day of. You see this, by the way, in history. This isn't just me trying to draw some weird narrative. That's actually a macroeconomic stat. That happens when job numbers are good. The stock market doesn't really like it because interest rates are affected. It also potentially puts hikes back on the table. Treasury yields also spiked on the news. So when the when the Federal Reserve made their very first rate cut in 2025, it was specifically because the labor market had weakened. That was a September 17th, 2025 report. Quote, the committee is attentive to the risks to both sides of its dual mandate and judges, quote, that downside risks to employment have risen, end quote. So there you go. That's that particular thing here. So that last little extra point here on the AI pullback, Broadcom weak guidance. Essentially, while there's still tens of billions of dollars into the AI industry, there are a lot of companies that are finding out that just throwing a lot of money at AI doesn't replace employees. Now, gee, who could it have been? Oh man, let me think really hard. Let me scratch the ridge of my nose here. Who was it that said that AI wasn't going to come in and suddenly make everyone's jobs just obsolete immediately? Oh yeah. Hi. It turns out that AI is expensive to run. And when you are feeding a ton of power through a lot of those wonderful graphical chips and RAM cards and other very power-hungry power supplies, that costs money. And there are a lot of companies that spent a lot of money on tokens, the thing like the little microcurrency for these AI developers. So those particular AI developers and companies that are charging companies for using the AI, it's not free. Not completely. And by the way, Google generating a Gemini image on Google is not the same thing as what some of these companies are trying to use AI for. So it's expensive. So the market is, in fact, rebalancing. It's not the major bubble pop that some are pretending that it is. And it's also not nothing either, like a minor road bump. It's a market correction. Something that a lot of traditional economists have said for quite a while. Also, one final micro note here. This is from producer Daniel. SpaceX, that's Elon Musk's space company, which unlike Blue Origin, their rockets are a lot more successful in launching. Not that they're, immune from rocket explosions, but just worth pointing out there. Their $75 billion hitting the public market, their IPO, that's just days away. So the amount of capital that's being raised here, there are some firms that are likely selling off some of their AI in order to prepare to buy a lot of shares of SpaceX. So there you go. There's your little market recap. Exciting things for sure. I think it is almost time. Yeah, it's 8:21. We're going to get over to some mail time in a second. On kind of the Pride Month side of things, I should point out there have been a lot of you who have signed up signed on to the petition over at the Alliance Defending Freedom. This is the petition that goes to a lot of corporate America, speaking of the stock market, these publicly traded companies that are required by law to listen to a majority of their stakeholders. And in fact, a lot of these big companies, including like big box companies like Home Depot and American Express, they're not allowed to take part in a bunch of corporate practices that are overtly against the economic interests of their shareholders. What does that mean? A lot of these companies like American Express and Home Depot, they're still providing a lot of their employees access to gender mutilation treatments and transgender medical procedures for minors. That's still on the insurance plan. So the Alliance Defending Freedom is rallying stakeholders, shareholders, to the interests of Americans who don't want to see organizations that they support take part in those practices again. Stop the Alliance Defending Freedom's petition, which does tell corporate America to stop covering these procedures, is heard by leaders at these major companies whose decision to end coverage for these procedures will, I should say could, but it will impact other industries and companies across the country. And the reason I say that so definitively is when companies in the same industry see a leading maneuver made on certain employee offerings, on certain economic decisions, certain company policy decisions, those are almost always carried out by other competing companies, for example, like Lowe's, that they often follow certain policy leadings on the Home Depot side. So highly encourage you to head over to joinadf.com/Tony or text Tony, Tony, to 83848. Again, huge thank you to the Alliance Defending Freedom, to ADF, for sponsoring the show. Very, very much appreciated. All right, my voice is starting to give out here at the very end of the show this week. So it's time for a little mail time. Mail time. Mail time.
On the Tony Kinnett Cast.
All right, boys, girls, and squirrels, time for a little mail time. Not exactly groundbreaking segment. No one ever promised it to be. A little viewer interaction here. You guys have had some stellar questions that have been brought to the floor this week that I've promised I would be getting back to you about. So the best way to get a question in on mail time, I know a lot of you leave really kind questions over in the comment section, and we are very, very grateful to those. However, I will say you head down to our description. There's a link to the Discord, and that's a great place to join. There's a little mail time section that's all for forcing me to read some of your best and worst questions. And boy, howdy, are there a lot. For example, from Quellen Authority that says, what's the airspeed velocity of an unladen sparrow? And I have to just ask, are we talking about a European or an African swallow, or in this case, sparrow? It kind of matters when you're talking about these kinds of things. So moving forward, John McCafferty asks, Tony Kinney, what happened to you? I have no idea what you're talking about, and my name is not Kinney. It's Kinnett. Kinnett. The extra T, it's for extra talent. If you're talking about my voice, I'm tired. I was sick this week. And also, one can only watch so many committee hearings where Mazie Hirono, Marco Rubio, Scott Bessent, and then that one crazy lady I've never heard of before are throwing punches at each other before I very much want to stick my head in a blender with broken glass. So that said, and a little bit to the aside, one last question from the YouTube crew, and then I'm going to dive into the Discord mail time. What is my take on Xi Jinping going to North Korea? Well, I mean, there are parents who visit their deadbeat kids' apartments all the time, right? That's not exactly news. I mean, goodness gracious, Hunter Biden and Joe are still talking. So, I mean, if Xi Jinping, if Winnie the Pooh of China, goes down to North Korea, I'd say that's kind of normal. Not really thinking one way or the other. From Steve, this is a question I've gotten a lot, and I've been eager to answer it. who is my pick to be on the ticket with Marco Rubio in 2028? So I still don't have an official, this is who my wish list is for candidates. At this point, do I believe it's going to be either Rubio or Vance? Yes, I still believe that's the choice, one way or the other. I think right now, given the news and given how he's acting, there's a better chance for it to be Marco Rubio than Vance. I don't know that for sure. Do I think that Vance would be vice president twice in a row? No. I think more important than the question as to who would be the next vice president, who I would say there's honestly a pretty good chance it could be Jim Banks of Indiana or Mike Lee of Utah, maybe. You could see a senator, brought up. That's kind of what the Senate is for. Sorry. Since state legislatures stopped electing them directly, the state Senate's just become your state's most popular representative or former governor. And then they sit there in the wings until they're given the last bachelorette rose to be the new almost president. And then they do nothing. I think the better question is who would be the next Secretary of State? Because given how things are going right now, that's a good question. I don't know for sure who I believe Rubio would put in charge of the State Department. That's who I'm still kind of noodling it on. I do think there's a pretty good chance that he could pick Harmeet Dillon for his vice president or for his attorney general. I think we're going to be in the age of something that Donald Trump, another thing that Donald Trump forever changed with the American people, is that when the president runs now, because the administrative state, the fourth branch of government, is so big, that you have a team running for office. So here's going to be my pick for this. I'm bringing Tulsi Gabbard is going to be part of my campaign. I mean, that kind of a thing. A very kind super chat from Rebecca Blizzard, $10 super chat, said, I hope you get better soon. One of my sons made some of the parts that the Blue Origin rocket that exploded. Sorry. He said it was an anomaly. He said it was very much discouraging. Love your show so much. Well, I will say this in a bit of encouragement. A lot of those rocket tests are done with the expectation they'll explode. That's one of the reasons you didn't actually see, you don't see astronauts or field technicians or flight crew up close next to or in the rocket for a lot of those early tests. So some of that is expected. So, little on the side there for you. Next question here that I digging through the mail time question. Why does interesting question from Royce back on June the 2nd. Why on God's green earth does the state of California get to take weeks and weeks after the election to produce results? Remember the days when we voted on Tuesday, November the 7th, and we got the results by midnight of the 7th? It's all mail-in voting is the answer. It's mail-in voting. The idea that if someone wants to submit a ballot by mail, like the day after the election in California, but you meant to do it earlier, then you should be allowed to. It's scummy and stupid. That's really the whole thing. That's why. And California has enshrined it in law, which should be a right of a states to do. But as the United States is moving to being more of a federalized polity in and of itself, I don't necessarily, expect some of that to last forever. What are my last question I'll answer here from Michelle. What are your thoughts on the large growth in the U.S. and military conflicts? I think you can see some patterns, but maybe not causation or the relation. Maybe it's coincidence, but the timing with AI makes me wonder if the craziness in this world right now is related to it. If you mean just like the United States involved in various military conflicts around the world, the U.S. has always been involved in military conflicts where it has interests. Always. As soon as the United States started establishing trade with other countries, other groups around the world, states, nation states, groups of Muslims started harassing us on the high seas. And the United States took action. Again, when I say the oldest tradition of the United States Navy is sinking Muslim boats in the Mediterranean, well, the Barbary states weren't actually shut up. Yes, they were. Yeah, I mean, that's what the U.S. does. And the United States, every country around the world has always engaged in those kind of conflicts. There's this really silly idea where we go, well, actually, Congress used to declare war, and now countries don't ever do that. There was a time when military officials were given a code of conduct that they were to carry out on the high seas in the broader world to defend themselves or take action at the behest of the United States or for other countries, European, Asian, etc., that would then carry out those actions. You wouldn't even hear about it. You would say, oh, there was some kind of a diplomatic or a military scuffle with this tribe or this region or this group. Something went wrong and it's being settled. That happened during the Civil War with the United Kingdom. There was a small scuffle that turned into a diplomatic crisis. These things happen quite often, and the United States has always been getting involved here and there. Now, again, we can talk about the President of the United States having unilateral authority to start brand new huge wars whenever he wants, of course. However, the idea that the United States, we're suddenly ramping up our actions around the world, no, that's been a thing. That's been a thing for a very good long while. Can you play the mail time sound effect? Yeah, just for you. Sorry, I know it's at the end, but here you go.
Mail time. Mail time.
Mail time. On the Tony Kinnett Cast.
The things that you guys are concerned about cracks me up. All right, I'd say that we have just about done it for this week. I'm a little tired. You guys are a little done with all of these various newsy updates. I guess that, the California elections, they are finally now, according to the decision desk, projecting that Kevin Kiley is one of the two winners in the California U.S. House 6 primary. So California 6th Congressional, they are projecting Kevin Kiley to be one of the two winners in that jungle primary. So congrats, I guess, to Representative Kevin Kiley or whatever. So there you go. There's a little end of your week news update just for you. So that said, we'll be back on Monday, unless there's crazy news over the weekend, God forbid. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal and nationally syndicated first on 93 WIBC. I need to sleep. Take care.